Now it's time for Poly Nonsense.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Poly Nonsense, hosted by Captain Kirk.
And that's me.
And I'm some guy named Jason. On the show today, we have Captain Kirk covers the primaries, Dr. Fauci, the science gets COVID, Biden writes oil letters. We have errors and corrections, and our headlines. But first, January 6th. Now, Kirk, I know you've been diving pretty deep into this whole thing. You had a project you did this week?
Yeah, I'm looking to expand on this podcast, so I thought, why not do a Poly Nonsense live stream, the first of its kind, and let's take a listen. Welcome to the first live stream of the Poly Nonsense podcast, Captain Kirk flying solo for a reaction to live remarks by the January 6th panel, as some guy named Jason did not want to watch this with me. Anyway, the panel has promised bombshells, so let's get our snacks ready and our drinks nearby. As Liz Cheney, in her blue suit, no doubt purchased by her daddy Dick, is talking. Okay, let's go ahead and unmute her. And here we go.
The importance of bipartisanship and what a tremendous honor it is to work on this committee. Mr. Chairman, at 6:01 p.m. on January 6th, after he spent hours watching a violent mob besiege, attack, and invade our Capitol, Donald Trump tweeted, but he did not condemn the attack. Instead, he justified it. These are the things and events that happen, he said.
Oh, sorry, I fell asleep. Okay, yeah. I apologize.
Yeah, I think you giving it the proper amount of attention.
And which is not much.
So, it is the second hearing we've had. There's 6 of them total.
Correct, yep.
One was primetime, and then one has been postponed.
Right, one's been postponed. We have one of the panelists from the J6 committee explaining to MSNBC what happened.
We had a lot of hearings compressed together, and there were logistical problems that are going to be avoided by kicking one of the hearings over to next week. And it had to be the one tomorrow because witnesses for the Thursday hearing, were immovable. So it's not much of a story.
I see. Okay. But you said something key there, which is that hearing will just move. It'll be rescheduled. We're not losing a hearing. It's going to happen next week.
Oh, correct. No, it's just going to be postponed.
And there's no reason that, again, not to stay on this longer than necessary, but last question, there's no reason that I should think there's something going on. They learned a new thing. A witness backed out, etc.
Well, we're constantly learning new things, but this is primarily logistical.
Primarily.
I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
See, that's interesting.
Primarily a technicality problem.
What does that mean, primarily?
I'm not entirely sure. Is there another bombshell in the making?
I don't know. That wouldn't sound bombshell making.
It was very vague.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. What are you taking away from this?
We have not much to go on. Here's Tamara Keith essentially saying that if you're paying attention, then this is nothing new. And if you're not paying attention, then who cares? You're not paying attention.
A lot of this is not new to those of us who've been following it very closely, but most people have not been following it very closely. And,
So if you're paying attention to what this is, bringing attention to something you're paying attention to, but if you're not paying attention, then there's no attention being brought.
Who is this a commission for? It's an audience of one. That's Joe Biden's Attorney General, Merrick Garland. The panel wants him to act on these criminal referrals that they have issued, and so far he's not doing so.
Other than not ever having anyone vote Republican ever again, they pretty much just want Trump to do the perp walk, right?
As Chuck Schumer says, when you take on the intel community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you.
This is impeachment 3.0, except there's no defense to object or redirect or cross-examine witnesses.
And technically, you can't really impeach someone who doesn't have the office.
A prosecution by another mechanism.
If he wins the primary, there's a very good chance he'll win the presidency. So we should be very concerned. I'm going to do everything in my power, which may not be a lot of power, but everything in my power to ensure he doesn't win.
We have two witnesses that were supposed to go on last Monday. Bill Stepien, the campaign chair for the Trump 2020 campaign, he was unable to attend. I think he was having a child. And so he's not going to appear at all, but they do have depositions for him.
Will he face any repercussions for not showing at all?
I highly doubt it. Merrick Garland seems like a feckless little guy. I don't think he has the wherewithal to do something like that.
And who was the other one?
The second witness that actually showed up was the 2020 Fox News election desk chief, Chris Steyerwalt, who had called prematurely Arizona.
He prematurely projected.
Hey-o.
Please clap.
Here's what he said in a conversation with Zoe Lofgren.
After the election, as of November 7th, in your judgment, what were the chances of President Trump winning the election?
After that point?
Yes.
None. I mean, I guess it's always possible that you could have, a truckload of ballots be found somewhere, I suppose.
Whoa, wait a minute. So you're telling me in a election that was completely above board, it was completely legitimate.
The most secure election in modern history.
The trucks are driving around with votes in them?
That's normal. Come on,
It's crazy. What is it, South Side Chicago? You gotta be shitting me.
Shout out to Mayor Daley.
Chicago has had a Mayor Daley for 43 of the last 55 years. Richard Daley, the father, for 22, followed by a brief intermission, and then the son since 1989.
So what I'm really interested in is I don't understand what the point of all of this is other than to drag this as close to November as humanly possible, to keep saying don't vote Republican, and oh my God, is Trump horrible.
What are they going to do, take on inflation? Putin? Baby formula shortages? They have nothing, so they're going with January 6th.
I mean, I guess it's always possible that you could have, a truckload of ballots be found somewhere, I suppose.
Okay, so we're getting deeper and deeper into primary season. The Democrats and the Republicans are sharpening their swords, seeing who will face off against one another. Kirk, what are you taking away so far from these primaries?
So I'm focused on 3 states, South Carolina and the Republican primary there.
These results show that the Trump popularity mark has not waned and that he cannot be underestimated in Republican territory at least. This could also be seen as a warning sign for other Republicans who continue to oppose Trump.
Alaska, they have a ranked choice voting system, which is pretty unique for the country.
Instead of choosing just one candidate, you can rank them in order of preference. If no candidate gets a majority after first-choice votes are counted, the one with the least votes gets eliminated. If you voted for that candidate, your vote goes to your next choice, and you still have a say in who wins. This process goes on until a candidate gets a majority of votes and is declared the winner. Learn how to rank it up, Alaska.
And this special election in Texas.
Republicans poured more than $1 million into the special election in a district President Joe Biden won by 4 points. It touches 80 miles of the southern border and is one of 3 South Texas Democratic strongholds the GOP is targeting in November.
So what's going on in South Carolina?
There are 2 Republicans who just finished their primaries. One was Tom Rice. He was an anti-Trump Republican who voted for impeachment. Trump went after him, endorsed his opponent, and he got creamed.
Russell Fry, who Trump had supported, convincingly ousted Tom Rice, who was a 5-term representative and had voted to impeach Trump last year. Another Trump-backed Republican candidate, Tim Scott, coasted to an easy and unopposed primary win in South Carolina. These wins essentially give a massive boost to Trump's confidence and serve as a measure of revenge for him, especially against Tom Rice.
He was more of an anti-Trumper than this next Republican. Nancy Mace. She's an anti-Trumper who kind of keeps him at arm's length.
I wouldn't necessarily call her anti-Trumper.
She's a not Trumper.
She's a non-Trumper.
She's a Trump skeptic.
She kind of made a name for herself as a new member of Congress, unafraid to challenge her party. As time wore on, however, she started to talk less about that and tried to focus her race more on local and economic issues. But Donald Trump endorsed her primary opponent. And when he did, Nancy Mace took a video of herself outside Trump Tower talking about how she supported the former president and trying to kind of make up some ground there.
So compared to Tom Rice, who lost, Nancy Mace is a little bit more kind to the MAGA side.
So she's pretty much keeping Trump at arm's length.
Exactly, and we've seen some candidates try and pull that off to some success. We saw in the Virginia gubernatorial election that Glenn Youngkin was able to keep Trump at arm's length.
Because you don't necessarily want to completely deny Trump, but if you don't feel comfortable, you don't necessarily want to embrace him either.
Right, you want his voters, but not his personality.
It's a very thin line to walk.
We have then in Alaska, they have a ranked choice voting,
which is very interesting.
Yeah, it's not a system I prefer. You have a wide range of candidates, something like 48 in Alaska. You pick the ones that you like and rank them. So Sarah Palin, let's say Santa Claus, and Mickey Mouse. You put Palin first, Santa Claus second, Mickey Mouse third, and through all the aggregated votes, whoever gets the most moves on. It seems kind of chaotic to me. Sarah Palin, probably just due to name recognition. She was a former governor. McCain's VP pick in 2008, I think that's what helped her get over the hill.
And so she won that primary.
Oh, right. Now she occupies Don Young's seat. He died not too long ago.
And also this morning, Alaska Congressman Don Young, the so-called Dean of the House of Representatives, has passed away at the age of 88. First elected in 1973, in 2020, Young was re-elected to his 25th term as the only representative from Alaska. He was the longest-serving member of the current Congress. Don Young passed away while traveling home to Alaska with his wife, Ann.
She will fill out his seat until November.
What's happening deep in the heart of Texas?
We have our first Mexican-born representative, Mayra Flores.
And that is amazing.
She is a Republican in a seat that hasn't gone for the GOP in something like 150 years.
150 years. That is insane.
That is, I think, a bellwether result that will show up in the November general election.
We've seen shifts like this throughout South Texas. This, by the way, is the second most heavily Hispanic congressional district in the United States. We've talked about the potential shift among Hispanic voters. We certainly saw it in 2020. The question has been, would we see it in 2022? I think this result we got from Texas 34 last night definitely underscores the Hispanic vote could be up for grabs this fall in ways we haven't seen in a long time.
But here's the thing. What if the Hispanic vote doesn't lean left? Do you think if the Hispanic vote does start to vote Republican, that the Democrats would actually want a more secure border?
Unfortunately, I think they're too tied into this open border, globalist, America is a racist country, decolonize it, etc. For them to want to try and turn that ship, they can barely handle inflation. I don't think they'll be able to handle a restructuring of their ideology on immigration.
Is there anything interesting on the Democratic side?
We have a lot of quote-unquote whispering about Joe Biden not running again in 2024. Here's AOC giving a not fond endorsement of Biden.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but I think if the president has a vision, and that's something certainly we're all willing to entertain and examine when the time comes.
That's not a yes.
Yeah, I think we should endorse when we get to it. But I believe that the president has been doing a very good job so far, and should he run again, I think that I think it's we'll take a look at it.
I love seeing her on Instagram. You know what I mean? There's something about her on Instagram just warms my cockles. I don't know what it is.
What? I was going to say, don't tell your wife that, but so we have then AOC and a number of other Democrats. Tim Ryan, he's a Democrat senatorial candidate in Ohio. John Fetterman, he's the Pennsylvania Democrat Senate candidate, saying no thank you to any effort for Joe Biden to campaign with them, which is really rare.
That is very odd. I mean, not for Joe Biden, but just odd in general.
Just in general, exactly. Joe Biden will be the first president in my lifetime to not run for re-election. The last time that happened was in 1968 with LBJ.
Accordingly, I shall not seek and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
It is interesting to see how the Democrats will fight the red wave that is coming with a president they don't want involved, a vice president they don't want speaking, and really nothing in the background to help them out.
And a Speaker of the House who can't speak and is married to a drunk driver.
Jeez, that one's right, the shins. Welcome back to Poly Nonsense. Now, ladies and gentlemen, don't panic, but science got COVID.
Oh, the humanity.
Dr. Anthony, the Science Fauci. It finally came down on him. Finally got him. He's got COVID. Now, he's got minor symptoms, so there's nothing to be too worried about. But what's interesting about this whole thing, is there any discussion about boosters, about shots, about antibodies? Because apparently, you don't necessarily need just one.
If you saw the COVIDian response, those are the pro-lockdown, pro-mask mandate, pro-vaccine mandate crowd, respond to Fauci's remarks about COVID entering the endemic phase. I don't think we're going to be through this for another couple years.
I would appreciate if you don't use words like this is a family show.
I apologize. I'll make sure in the post-production edit to bleep that out.
I've seen there's studies that say that those who are boosted or shot up and boosted and all those things, and they've never had COVID before, they still have a very high percentage chance of getting COVID. If you have had COVID and you've never got a shot, your chances are lower. But then if you have a shot or any sort of connection of shot, and then you also had COVID, that is the best defense towards this disease.
My head is spinning right now, and I've been following this issue for quite a while. I guess this is what you get when you have a lab-created Black Plague infesting the entire world.
Are we ever going to go back to where it came from? Is that ever going to be discussed?
Why did y'all spike the prior administration's investigation into the origins of the coronavirus and whether it could have come out of the Wuhan lab?
Unfortunately, I think the monetary and geopolitical interests are going to prevent us from ever knowing.
Sir, we did not spike anything in the prior administration. I'm not sure what you mean by spike, but we have no influence.
The State Department spiked the prior administration's study.
Because what is that is super annoying to me. It's incredibly annoying that we are never going to get down to the brass tacks on this.
But that has nothing to do with the National Institutes of Health.
So they didn't consult with y'all?
They did not.
Did they consult with you, Dr. Coppins?
I read about it in the press this morning.
Doc, they just spiked it without talking to their experts? You don't want to answer that one, do you?
I just read about it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think our only hope is Rand Paul.
He's the only one that's ever taken on Dr. Fauci in any real meaningful way.
Dr. Fauci, the idea that a government official like yourself would claim unilaterally to represent science, that any criticism of you would be considered a criticism of science itself, is quite dangerous.
And apparently, as of this recording right now, Fauci and Rand Paul are literally doing their little dance up on Capitol Hill.
I'm Dr. Fauci. Don't ever question me.
I'm Rand Paul. I'm a doctor too.
It's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science. Because I represent science. Because I represent science. Because I represent science.
Oh, what a situation we find ourselves in. So, with the science changing every 5 seconds, I think we're stuck with this.
See, what's very interesting is the science is always changing the truth.
Because I represent science.
Biden, ladies and gentlemen, has been doing some correspondence. This past week, Biden has written a letter to 7 different oil executives demanding, pleading that they up their production, saying that it is a necessity for the country and implying it's their patriotic duty.
Oh, I'm sure there's nobody these executives want to hear from more than Joe Biden.
He's restricted drilling. He's canceled contracts, and he's denied permitting. He's gone to Venezuela, he's gone to Iran, he's gone to Canada, he's gone to all these different countries to produce more oil. He has closed down the Keystone Pipeline. He's pandered to the left, to the Green Initiative.
The Enviro nuts.
For us not to produce oil. He has actually made it part of his platform when he ran for president that he wants to get rid of the oil production in this country.
No joke, man, no joke.
But I want you to look in my eyes. I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel, and I am not going to cooperate with you, okay?
And now he's writing a letter, knowing that his chestnuts are in a vice.
Well, he's already emptying out our strategic petroleum oil reserve by pumping out 1 million barrels a day in a country that requires 20 million just to operate.
And those emergency oil reserves, that's meant for like wartime. That's meant for when the country is in a severe and deep panic.
To call it a rainy day fund would actually be doing it a disservice. It's for the monsoon season type situations.
So what he's viewing it as is come November, it's coming, monsoons are coming.
Yep, the red waves on the horizon.
So what do you think the reaction from these executives were? Do you think they immediately laughed at it and threw it away, or do you think they read it, thought for a second, then laughed at it, and then threw it away?
I think they passed it around the office like, hey, Jim, come read this. And then they all started to laugh before they tore it up and moved on.
I just don't understand. Who does he think he's fooling? He's the one that has stopped oil production. He's the one that has promised to get rid of gas-running cars. He is the one that has prompted this whole situation. And now that he is in this situation, a letter to an executive is not going to change anything.
He's appointed energy secretaries that have no energy plan, transportation secretaries that advise us to buy $40,000 electric vehicles while he goes on paternity leave for 2 months.
I don't know. I think in this kind of a situation, a letter ain't going to cut it. All right, thank you for listening to Poly Nonsense. We're back with our errors and corrections. This is the segment where we go over what we got wrong on the last episode. Now, what we can tell is, Kirk, you had a pretty clear bill of health on that one.
Yeah, we'll try to do worse next time, but there were only 2 errors needed to correct.
One of the corrections is I said executive James Goldston is from CBS. He was not from CBS. He's from ABC.
Oops.
My bad. Also, 2, I said that they refer to mini golf in Russia as a Putin. Apparently they don't.
I don't think Vlad would be very happy with that one.
And now it's just the headlines we just didn't get to.
Saudi authorities seize rainbow toys and crack down on homosexuality.
They don't want to taste the rainbow. 2 rescued after falling into tank of chocolate at a Mars and M&M factory.
What a sweet accident. Black Death origin mystery solved 675 years later.
Don't say the word Wuhan.
It's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science because I represent science.
And finally, man versus horse race, won by runner for the first time in 15 years.
That one's going to the glue factory.
I like the Gallup poll.
Heyo.
Thank you so much for listening to Poly Nonsense. If you want to contact us, please check out polynonsense.com. You can check out past episodes and let us know what you think. If you like us, if you don't like us, just let us know. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll check you next time.